This podcast is sponsored by BetterHelp. After experiencing trauma, I went to therapy, and my therapist guided me through a difficult time in my life. They helped me understand what was happening and provided me with tools to cope and find my own strength and resilience. Their experience and compassion were invaluable and enabled me to rebuild my life and move forward. I strongly believe in the power of therapy to help people through difficult times. BetterHelp connects you with a licensed therapist who is trained to listen and give you helpful, unbiased advice. First, you go to their site. You can use my link, betterhelp.com/resilience. You answer a few questions, and BetterHelp will match you to a professional who has years of experience helping people with struggles just like yours. Let BetterHelp connect you to a therapist who can support you, all from the comfort of your own home. Visit betterhelp.com/resilience or choose podcast, then notes on resilience during sign up and enjoy a special discount on your first month.
So it's almost learning your new language, your new cadence around this environment. Your inner environment has changed. Your outer environment may as well. So when we settle, and I call this sit, stay, and listen to ourselves patiently. Patiently, as if you're walking your dog, but you happen to be your own dog, your pet, whatever loving, you're watering your plant, but you happen to be your plant, and you may be talking to your plant. You almost have to look, and it's difficult to come to that place where you turn the lens around, and instead of the shame, you just sprinkle a little bit of light loving.
Hello, welcome to Notes on Resilience. I'm your host, Manya Chilinsky. Today's episode is another in our series, Resilient Hearts, Navigating Emotions After Tragedy. Our topic today is shame. I spoke with Wen Peetes. She is an intuitive healing coach, a mentor, and a speaker who works with women and help them become powerful decision makers. And we talked about healing your inner child. We talked about what shame is and how to help yourself when you're feeling that way and how to help others. And she also said a phrase that I just love. There's never a race to your grace, meaning that we heal in our own time and in our own ways. I think you're going to find this episode very interesting. And if you like the podcast, please subscribe on Apple Podcasts and leave a review if you're so inclined. We would love to know how we're doing. Thank you. Hello, Wen. I'm so excited to be talking to you today. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much, Manya, for having me. I've been looking forward to chatting with you for so long now.
I know, I have been too. But before we get into the heart of the matter, I'm curious, if you could have dinner with any historical figure, who would it be and why?
The first person that comes to mind is Maya Angelou. She resonates with me on so many levels. Talk about seasoned self-belief and clarity of language in a way that transcends age, race, ethnicity, circumstance, religion. Oh, when I stumbled upon her vast knowledge and how she, let's call it self-engineered her life, I'd have no other word, from where she came from. Oh, I come back to her so many times. For me, it's her. Maya Angelou represented an example of who I could become. I'm also a musician. She's a musician. She's a poet. She represents her trauma background, similar, and just how she traveled and I've traveled. I could see myself in her. And so right away she resonated. There's so many other people across different geographic background that resonated too. But when I look at my sister in my head, my auntie.
Yes, I love that answer and your reasoning for it. Maya Angelou, we are so lucky to have been graced with her and her work and her life. If you can make that happen, I want to hear all about it when you're done. Now, before we dig into our topic today, can you just tell us briefly, who are you?
I always believe this, Manya. I am spirit before I am human. I feel that very deeply. So I don't, some people may say, my name is this, I'm from this. I am just a being who have been gifted with a clarity over time of why I am here in this space, in this time, in this form, to help others on their journey as they will help me in my clarity of who I am becoming still and sharing. So this is who I am. I am an intuitive guide, an intuitive healing coach that uses every facet of my being to share the promise of what our heart, our spirit truly, truly has divined us to be, but we're still leading up to that place. We are still getting ready. We're still getting ready. I'm also an author, I'm a musician, a writer, but encompassed in all of that, I am here to serve, to serve.
Thank you for sharing. You do such important work. And today, you and I are going to be talking about an important topic, and that is the concept of shame. So, and especially thinking about it after someone has experienced a tragedy. And what is shame, and what is its role in someone's life?
Shame is very personal. Shame is a signature of whatever is resonating within you, me, whomever is listening, dear ones on this podcast, whatever is resonating that feels out of sorts within you, that feels unsettled, that feels like there's something about you that is wrong, bad, not where you need to be. It's an emotion that many of us, including me in my journey to healing, thought that shame was a horrible thing. I don't want to feel it. Let me not feel shame, not let me not react to what it brings. But truly, according to me, Manya, and from my experience coaching women, over the years, shame is just a sacred messenger of something that we can use as a teacher of love. Shame embodies some type of charge within us that wants to inform us and educate us about how we feel. But because it's coming from so many directions of our lives, it's triggered by so many different things, whether it's professional, whether it's personal, whether it's ancestral. It's so deeply rooted that we think it's bad. Shame is, according to me, its job is very similar to joy, love. It's here to inform us and serve us as we become our home. It is, but it's so jarring and scary, and nobody teaches us how to listen to the intelligence of our wisdom. So we run away, we drink the alcohol, we overwork, we have and engage in unloving practices that do what? All of these practices build that muscle of shame, reinforcing that something about us is wrong. So let's go fix it. Let's go sedate it. Let's go meditate it. And shame was the toughest emotion for me to overcome in my journey. So I completely understand the inner work and the dedication that required and the loving that's required to move through that emotion.
Yes. So you mentioned it. It's something that makes us feel there's something wrong with us. What is the root of that? Why do we feel that after, especially after something tragic has happened to us? Why do we feel that that means there's something wrong with us?
Because I think it's normal for us to look for a reason or why something so violent, evil, unloving would happen to us. And because we cannot immediately understand, sometimes there is no rational reason why somebody is evil or wicked or unkind or untruth or unloving. But our mind looks for that reason, that explanation, that answer. And when we do not get that, whom else do we blame? The woman, the man, the person in the mirror. It's got to be something about me. I did it. I'm wrong. It's me I have to look to for the answer because nobody else is raising their hand and said, I did it. I take responsibility for the hurt that I caused upon you. I take responsibility for the environment in which you grew up and that instills certain unloving untruths within your heart. I take responsibility for that. No one does that for us for the most part, or we may not even realize or because children are infused with the feelings of shame. We don't have the intelligence. We don't have not matured yet emotionally to understand that shame and the way you feel is the way you feel. Your name is not shame.
Mhm.
It's just an emotion. But I can tell you, many of us, shame is our first name or our last name or middle name. And we walk through life with that social security number called SHAME.
Okay. And now you mentioned that it was one of the emotions that you struggled with significantly after your own experience. I'm curious, after we experience violence or tragedy, there are so many different emotions that we're experiencing. How did you recognize that shame was something specifically that you were struggling with?
My spirit just said it. My spirit said there's something wrong with you and everything about you is shameful. The way you look, it's not loving, it's not kind, it's not compassion, it's not beautiful. And you ought to be ashamed that you are alive and you are breathing. It was so intense. So we know, again, we get the feeling because normally no one comes and points to you and says shame, shame, or sometimes that happens, but we feel it. And that's the first word that we as human beings are programmed negatively. We have a negativity bias to think that what's the worst thing that's about me? Well, it's shame. It's unkind, but shame is has a more immediate resonance, has a more immediate intensity that we latch onto. And so that's how I felt. I'm shameful because
Mm-hmm.
I just am. Something happened. Nobody else understands. And I'm living an everyday, just breathing is so taxing. And I'm ashamed that I can't get over this. I'm ashamed that I can't get through it. And you're an adult now. Why can't you get through it? Come on. So when we don't get the immediate solution, it reinforces the shame so much so that we don't realize we can actually ask for help. We can seek help within ourselves first by slowly, and this takes time, lots of effort and self-belief and a hunger, Manya, a hunger, desire to truly want to get out of that negative energy. Hunger to believe that on the other side of shame, what will I find? Maybe maybe I can be my maybe
Mm-hmm.
where shame is not even a thing anymore. But if we don't even open up ourselves to believe in that possibility of something other than what we feel, because shame is just usually, let's call it a winter coat. Underneath shame is usually another emotion. It's just a winter coat. You shed that, you take that coat off. It's usually blame. Who are you blaming? Why? Where did it come from? Under that is like a tank top after you take that sweater off. Then it becomes guilt. Then it becomes envy. There's so many layered emotion that shame cocoons us. So when you eventually lift them off, you're realizing, the root of this thing is something else. But
Mm-hmm.
shame is just the winter coat. Shame is just the mask that's easily resonant, and we wear that through our lives.
Right. Absolutely. Oh, thank you for sharing that. What role does resilience play in helping people deal with the shame they might feel after something awful happens to them?
That's a great question. I think for you to touch the powerful, life-giving, transformative energetic force and truth of resilience that can absolutely rocket fuel your life, you have to give yourself consent to break up with the shame.
Mm-hmm.
If you yourself don't say, listen, I'm aware that this is happening and I yearn for a change. I crave this. I want this other than state of being. Maybe you don't have the vocabulary yet. Many of my clients say they just want peace inside of them. Peace. So you have to really, really give yourself consent to become your maybe that's your new name. Maybe what could happen if I try and be curious about how another emotion could feel? Maybe what could it be like if I join a group of women who are in a certain environment that's positive. Maybe. So you give yourself consent to explore another emotion, because the more we focus, Manya, on the shame and the negative, that's where we will live. And that becomes our bank account. That becomes our investment portfolio. But if we decide, let's try a maybe, what will happen? So once you give yourself consent for that, that opens up a whole other avenue for you to explore. There's something other than this experience that I'm having. So once you give yourself consent, slowly, it's an invisible, delicious, so subtle and elegant thing that happens, Manya. You don't even realize, maybe till like years later, months later. The more I open up myself to receive
Mm-hmm.
the thing that I crave, the more I am building this inner resilient muscle of
Mm-hmm.
my cravings, my wanting, my giving myself permission to want what I want, peace, loving relationship, whatever it is. And the more you tap into that, you compound your possibilities for exploring what you want. And then you say, let me go try this practice. So even the next time you're hurt or you have a trigger of shame, you, instead maybe of reaching for the cookie, the wine, the extra whatever, you tap into that. What did I do the last time when this happened? Maybe let me go back to this practice, go check with a coach, go get. So I'm saying it slowly builds and compounds on itself, but it starts just like a trickle. It starts with the trickle being your consent you give yourself to be your maybe. Let's try something else. It just compounds. It's such a subtle thing that many people don't see it. And that's why I encourage folks, if you're interested, to do audio journaling through your phone or whatever, or your book journal, just record your truths. Because especially if you live alone, many of my clients are professional women, ambitious women, they live alone, no husband and no mate. So they're always by themselves. And you don't sometimes have an opportunity to witness
Mm-hmm.
all the subtle shifts that you're doing to move yourself forward. So having that record helps you remember your resiliency and your inner power that you sometimes may be blinded by.
It's so interesting when you talk about some of your clients and not necessarily that they recognize what's happening to them. And I know from my own experience, and I would imagine many of our listeners this seems familiar to, is I didn't know necessarily what I was feeling. And I definitely didn't know how to address what I was feeling. I'm certain that I felt shame, but I don't know that I could have teased that out from all the other things that I was feeling.
And that's a human condition, yeah? Because so much of it is so intense and so overwhelming. But just for us to be courageous like you were, to just explore, it doesn't matter if it does not have a name. I say this to everyone. If you feeling it, it is honest, it's real, it's true for you. And it is, Manya, I truly believe, Manya, it is our emotions, the feelings we have that direct our actions, that direct our becoming, that direct our life. A lot of us look in our brains, we talk ourselves out with logic. Oh, I can do this, I can do this. But if your body is not synchronized with what your mind is telling you will always feel that emotion that creates a reaction. So even if it doesn't have a name, sometimes there's no name. If you feel it, it is true. So again, it comes down sometimes to our consistent belief and persistence to become intimate with this evolution that we're in. Because the
Mhm.
person you were, Manya, before you were affected, you changed and you were affected and impacted, right? So that's a
Yeah.
new version of you. So it's almost learning your new language, your new cadence around this environment. Your inner environment has changed. Your outer environment may as well. So when we settle, and I call this sit, stay, and listen to
Mhm.
ourselves patiently. Patiently, as if you're walking your dog, but you happen to be your own dog, your pet, whatever loving, you're watering your plant, but you happen to be your plant, and you may be talking to your plant. You almost have to look, and it's difficult to come to that place where you turn the lens around, and instead of the shame, you just sprinkle a little bit of light loving. It comes down to that. And that's why I write in my book, Inner Child Healing, you sprinkle a little bit of light loving. What would happen if I ask myself, whatever XYZ. And what was I doing when I felt this thing, whatever that is? Who was I with? What was I wearing? Where did it come from? Did I experience it before? What age was I? And again, I say to everyone, all your listeners as well, I encourage you, I invite you to do this exploration at a pace that you can handle.
Mm-hmm.
Please, I encourage you, don't compare yourself to Charmaine, Wen, or Manya. You do it at a pace that you can handle. There's never a race to your grace. And if you cannot hold an emotion, if you cannot hold and inquire about an emotion, and if the answers you're getting are overwhelming or it's too much, it's record it, walk away. It'll be here for another day.
Yes. Thank you so much. And can you share with us a little bit about your book?
Ah, yes. Inner Child Healing, my first book.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you. Inner Child Healing is about, it's part memoir, part reflective guide with exercises because I'm here to serve, sharing how I overcame my childhood trauma as I journeyed through corporate America and traveled in different parts of the world, and how I overcame that and how I use my intuition, the courageous skill of listening to ourselves, our truth that lives within our bodies, lives within the tension in our bodies, live within our hearts. I use that to self-soothe the little girl in me who was traumatized at a young age, and there were a lot of repressed memories that came through as a result of burnout, working in corporate America in New York at the time. And now I use that my experience to share with through exercises about how I build the courage to push through, to persevere, and retrain my trauma mind, retrain my trauma body and self regard into the woman I am now, and how I pretty much turned shame to purpose.
Yeah.
So it was very challenging in parts to write that book because it's personal, it's deeply personal. But again, I understand and I believe I am responsible. I have a responsibility to share with others who have been journeying through what I have. And as I wrote the book and I've been sharing, I've learned that so many people who are close to me, who are very close to me, they're like, yeah, that happened to me as well.
Yeah.
It's amazing. Even the person across the desk from you in corporate America, across the bus from you, we're all so deeply connected. So I wrote the book. It's coming out January 11th, a tiny book, 158 pages, audiobook and ebook versions, hard copy versions as well. And I hope it serves others as well. And for your listeners, I'm offering copies of the book, a giveaway to you. 5 copies of the book. It's my sole offering to you as you journey through whatever stage you're in, whatever trauma you have experienced. Does not have to be childhood trauma, because I always say this, Manya, we are all on some type of healing journey, whether or not we realize it. We are affected by micro trauma, somebody cutting you off in traffic, somebody disrespecting you at work, one of my other clients waiting for a bonus. She didn't get the bonus, and so it's affecting her life. We're all affected, dealing with hurricanes and how that disrupts your life, war, how it disrupts your life. So it can serve others if you listeners, invite yourself to your maybe. It's available for you. Peace is available for you.
And how can our listeners sign up to be one of the people who possibly gets a free copy?
You can reach me, Manya, if you're open to it. Reach me at Rebel for a Spell, REBELFORASPELL. That's my handle on social media, on Instagram. I'm hanging out on Instagram these days a lot, or on Facebook. You can also find me at rebelforaspell.com. And you're welcome to send me a message if you'd like. If you feel called to, you can be a follower, or you can be a friend, whatever the term is. I can't keep up with it anymore. And just say, hey, I listened to you on Manya's podcast, and I would love to blah, 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 get that free book. And there you go. First come, first serve.
Yes, the first 5 people who contact us, and we will be able to timestamp it. So you contact me or you contact Wen, we will figure it out. We will make sure we get the first 5. And thank you for that really generous offer, Wen. I'm excited for our listeners. You said a couple things there. Your book, you're talking about what I individually can do to heal my inner child, to help myself, to, further my own journey. But you talked about things like micro traumas and people getting stuck in traffic. And we live in a society, and there are structures and systems and organizations all around us. What role do they play in supporting us or not supporting us as we're dealing with an emotion like shame?
Oh, I love this question. I believe it's difficult for somebody to support us in our transformation of shame until we individually decide, choose to receive something other than what we are. Because if you believe you deserve the place you're living, if it's unhealthy with whomever you're living, if you have not sought help for what you're working through, it reflects in the way you show up. I've seen it. I did it myself. Your head may be looking at your toes when you're speaking to somebody. You may not show up and speak clearly when you're trying to communicate, and that even the way you don't, even the way you stand, the unspoken communicates your value
Mm-hmm.
to another person, to yourself. So that's what we reflect. So unless you yourself say, listen, I need this for myself. I believe I am worthy of the thing just because I am worthy, even though I was harmed, I am still divine. I came through life perfectly perfect, imperfect, whatever you want to call it. And something happened to me, but that's not who I am. The thing happened to me. And so once you come to grips with that and you accept that, when you come upon someone, you say, listen, that conversation you had, it affected me. You get the courage to let people know through your words, not your looking at them a certain way or your silence. You get the courage to actually speak the words to whomever. And I've done it myself. I've seen my clients do it. Or sometimes you write a note if you've not gotten, work that throat loving muscle to let the words come from your heart. You leave a note, you send a text, you get that courage to share. And sometimes you may just not even be ready to say, listen, I'm dealing with all this stuff. Someone you know who is close to you, you may say, hey, can you come over? And you just sit with them on a bench, a park bench. That support is so loving. Just to know that you have a marker of hope. I've
Mm-hmm.
done that many times in my earlier stages. You sit in the park bench, you go for a walk, no words said, but you have to sometimes start and take tiny steps with somebody who may be closer to you,
Mm-hmm.
that loves you unconditionally and is not trying to rush you into becoming, let's call it healed, hurry up and heal, or don't address what you're dealing with. Someone that loves you enough that allows you to be.
Yes.
Just be.
Yes.
And so when you get that muscle, you work with that person, then you get another courageous skill where you take it to your job next and you get that courage because shame shows up everywhere in our lives because
Mm-hmm.
we become the shame. We believe we are worthless, less than, unloving, should get $10 an hour when we really deserve $1,000 an hour. It reflects, and people will not do the work for us. It's nobody else's responsibility
Mm-hmm.
but us to love ourselves so completely and as we are, all of ourselves, the
Yeah.
parts that's shameful, and help us move forward in knowing that we deserve what we deserve because we want it. No other
Right.
reason.
Right. Well, we're getting close to the end here, and I would like to know, what advice do you have for family or friends who want to support someone who is going through shame or all the complex emotions after dealing with something difficult in their life?
Hmm. I'd say just be available.
Mhm.
Just be available and use words that are less about you're trying to understand why they're behaving the way they're behaving or they're silent or isolating. Use words that's more of an invitation to them to open up. Hey, I'm here if you need me.
Mhm.
Let's go for a walk if you want to. and be the one that's infusing a little bit of positivity. Maybe you take them something as simple as a plant. So what are you doing by doing that? You are activating that caring muscle within them that may reciprocate to themselves to, I'm watering this plant every day. It's an action that I'm taking care of, and that may inspire them too. So it's just the little things, just being available, just being absolutely available and consistent as well.
Mm-hmm.
Consistent with your outreach to them. And it's not always about, let me buy you a gift so you feel better. It's the simple things. Simple things to include them in your day so they feel safe and safer and safer, knowing that here is a window of peace from my friend. And then maybe you may find an article. The more you build that trust with them, you will get the signal, the family member that is, you'll get that signal. You say, hey, I found this article. I have it on the table for you. And you walk away. What is that doing? You're honoring their self-consent to
Mm-hmm.
receive you in a way that they feel safe. Because shame is usually a violated circumstance that causes shame, whatever that is. Whatever the violation is, doesn't have to be physical, doesn't have to be violent. It is a violation of someone else's consent. So that's why you have to easily do that and recognize when the person is communicating, time out, I need some space. Recognize it's not about you.
Yes.
It's not about you. It's about their psychological, emotional, spiritual, physical safety.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you for sharing that. And before we wrap up, what do you have any final thoughts?
There's so much we each have to offer to the world and to ourselves, Manya. But oftentimes, coming back to Maya Angelou, we don't see an example of who we can become, of who we dare, who we have the gall. How dare you have the gall to want peace and be unshackled from shame? How dare you? You, meaning the listener, you, meaning me. How dare you? Because we want what we want. We deserve to have peace within ourselves. We deserve to come home to peace to ourselves. And Manya, if I tell you, I would never have imagined the 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 change and the transformation I've seen in the women that I serve. I
Mhm.
would never, and they can't even imagine. I can't even imagine it in myself. But I tell you, dear listeners, peace is available for you. You are your divine home, and whatever you want for yourself, it is possible. You can become your maybe, and there's no shame in raising your hand ever and asking for help. Even if people in your society, your communities don't do that, that's them. What do you need? Listen to the whispers, the nudges that your intuition, that emotion is telling you what you need because you need it. You see, I believe the traditional organized belief system, religion, way infuses a certain way for us to think, for us to behave. What is corporate culture infuses in us a way that we should be, but you are your authority. You know you better than anyone else. So within you, you have that power. You have that magnetic power to change your life, for you to transform your life in what you want it to be by pulling what you want closer to your possibilities, to your maybe bucket. And that is how change becomes, the change that you seek becomes. But if we focus only on, this is bad, but this is bad, this is not happening, that's what you settle into and that's what you become. You can become the change you seek because you are that change. You are peace. You're just readying yourself to get it, readying yourself to touch, taste, live, and breathe it. And I cannot wait for you to get there. And even right now, in the moment, I'm celebrating your decision to be your maybe.
Thank you so much.
You're
And before we
welcome.
leave, remind our listeners, how can they learn more about you?
Sure, you can find me at Rebel for a Spell, REBELFORASPELL.com, or on Instagram, Rebel for a Spell, Facebook, on LinkedIn, Wen Peetes, Rebel for a Spell. I'm here to serve you. I'm here to help you. I'm actually doing a meditation series soon, and that's helped a lot in my own healing and my clients' healing. They've been asking me for that as well, because anything that we can do to move forward and settling into our home within, I am here to serve.
Yes.
I'm
Thank you.
honored to serve.
Thank you so much. I'll put a link in the show notes so everybody can reach you more easily. And thank you again for the offer of books for our listeners. And this has been such a wonderful conversation. And I look forward to continuing this conversation with you in other formats as well. Thank you, Wen.
Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you to our listeners for being here today. Bye-bye. Thank you for listening. I hope you got as much out of this conversation as I did. So if you'd like to learn more about me, Manya Chilinsky, I work with organizations to help understand how to create environments where people can thrive after difficult life experiences. And I do this through talks and consulting. I'm a survivor of mass violence, and I use my experience to help leaders learn about resiliency, compassion, and trauma-sensitive leadership, to build strategies to enable teams to thrive and be engaged amidst difficulty and turmoil. If this is something you want to learn more about, visit my website, www.manyachilinsky.com, or email me at manya@manyachilinsky, or stop by my social media on LinkedIn and Twitter. Thanks so much.